Oh, no.
So of course, they're going in and taking care of it. Order the meeting of the public hearing of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods for the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year ending December 31. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford,
Present.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Dickin,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Hollander,
Here.
Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
Trustee Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now if I can ask our village attorney to make a presentation of the appropriations ordinance.
This is very
Or
special.
if
I'm going to
Director
pass this over to the
Vasquez.
finance director.
All right, scraping it off. That's good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The appropriations ordinance is on the agenda tonight. The budgeted numbers are also included for both expenses and expected revenues. The village staff manages to the approved budget amounts, but spending authority is from the appropriated amounts. Just give me one second here. Each year, the village board approves an appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year. Unlike the budget, which we prepare for planning and managing expenditures, the appropriations ordinance sets an upper bound for expenditures. The process of amending the appropriations ordinance is cumbersome, and therefore we deliberately include authority in the appropriations to spend beyond what is shown in the budget, to include contingencies and possible, though as of yet undecided, capital projects. Historically, we have included line items in the general fund under other financing uses to highlight possible transfers to other funds for these contingencies. But we are not required to spend up to the full amount of the appropriations ordinance or any amount shown, and in fact, have never done so. The appropriations ordinance is merely an authority to spend what is appropriated. The actual decision to spend only occurs when an item is presented to the board for approval, except for minor items which fall within the mayor's spending authority. As a convenient reference, we include the budgeted amount for each line item in a column that appears to the left of the appropriated amount. And generally, the appropriated amount is 10% above the budgeted item. This ordinance also includes an estimate of revenues the village expects to receive within the fiscal year. We can spend money for our purposes from revenues received during the fiscal year, as well as from our investment balances. The village held a finance workshop on October 15th of 2024 to discuss the needs of various village funds. Suggestions from that meeting were incorporated into the final budget, which is used to create the appropriations ordinance. Now, Bruce, you'll have to help me, or Attorney Hoover, is this where we waive the first reading, or?
No.
Okay.
No, this is just, first of all, if the board has any questions on, if there's anything in the appropriations ordinance that we should talk about, we don't do a year-to-year comparison. The actual amount that we appropriate is probably the best comparison is to compare one budget to the next. And I don't remember how much this budget is over last year, but generally speaking, because we take the appropriation items and just bump up the budget by 10%, if you've studied the budget, then you pretty much know what the appropriation is going to do. Except for those items where we put in contingency or possible uses that we just don't know yet, but sometimes historically we've always had an item for land acquisition, for example. We have money to transfer from the general fund into TIF fund number 2 in case we have some anticipated expenses with that. So the director and I can go through any particular item if you have any questions. And then the objective of tonight is to allow the public to comment, get any public comment or questions on the appropriations ordinance.
Any comments on
Question.
that? Trustee Hollander, please.
On the budget for the SSAs, are all the SSAs budgeted or only the active ones?
We budget for the ones that have maintenance levies or have debt service levies. So if they have neither, then we
Then they're not
generally-
on here.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Smith.
Yeah, I just had a question on the contingency. Director Vasquez, you had mentioned it's certainly understanding that it's something you can spend up to, not that you're going to spend it. I noticed that everything was up about 10% in the more detailed budget in the Board of Trustee meeting minutes. But I noticed the contingency was up from 300,000 to 3 million. Which seemed like a huge increase. And I didn't know if that was consistent with years prior because it's a contingency, so I get that, or if that is kind of increased appropriations.
Yes, for that particular line item, we keep the budget a little bit more modest there for unexpected items throughout the year. However, for the appropriated amounts, as Attorney Hoovard was alluding to earlier, that would be something we increase the amount for unexpected opportunities that could be related to property acquisition would be a good example, such as last year with when we approved the budget and appropriations, we did not know about the federal life activity would take place. So there's a little bit more there for those possibilities. And of course, those expenditures wouldn't happen, especially at that dollar amount, without coming to the board first.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, Director Vasquez. My question was the appropriation for contingency similar to that 3 million, or that
It was.
2.7 million if we increase everything 10%?
It was.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
In prior years, we've typically been carrying somewhere between 2 to 4 million for these various purposes, land acquisition, and just because we have a sense of the kind of things that we might suddenly snap at us, and so that's a fairly historical number going back 3 or 4 years.
Thank you.
Are any other comments Trustee Eastman?
Just one quick question for Director Vasquez. When we estimate the revenues, I realize that that's a really difficult process. Like, just briefly take me through, are our estimates conservative? How do we go about doing that so that we're convinced that it's accurate? And how accurate have we been roughly in the past in estimating revenues?
So the estimates, especially, I tend to budget fairly conservatively, both on the revenue side and the expenditure side. For revenues, as we start this process around July, August, looking to see where we're at. I do take another look around year end to see what we anticipate before our audit is finalized, but they're fairly conservative. One large one that I noted was our investment interest this year was very high. It was almost at $500,000 when we had budgeted 150,000. I, of course, hope that in 2025 we see similar activity. I would love that, but I know that the market is very unpredictable at this time. Our village treasurer said so in his recent comments to the board. So while I did increase that number up from the 150 that we had last year, it was still fairly conservative, nowhere near that $500,000 mark.
Okay, thanks. That seems pretty responsible to me. Thanks.
Trustee
Also,
Dickin.
the Illinois
excuse me,
Municipal
excuse me.
League generates forecasts of different revenue items, and so we generally use those, and we use them in a pretty conservative way.
Trustee Dickin, please.
Just a quick question. On both page 1 and page 4, you have signs. On page 1, you have 3,000 allocated, and on page 4, you have 0. I wasn't sure if it's a duplicate. And my other question is, which signs are in question? Are these advertisement of a public hearing, or what type of signs are we talking about? Or is this the electronic sign? So it's bottom of page 1 and then third line on page 4.
I believe those are signs that we post periodically for like hearings and things of that nature. The reason why it's in one and not the other, so it's the same, the expense number is the same. It's just at one point in time, I think it had been included in the building department, and it had been moved to administrative. So that's why that balance is carried there.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. I think we can adjourn the public hearing and move on to the board meeting. So may I have a motion for adjournment of the public meeting?
So moved.
Public hearing, rather, sorry. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, I think all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, I will call to order the Board of Trustees meeting, the Village of Riverwoods. Will you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call again, please.
Mayor Ford,
Present.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Dickin,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Hollander, Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business, we have 3 separate approvals here. First is the Board of Trustees workshop from February 18th, 2025. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions on that? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, Board of Trustees meeting for February 18th. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any? Yes, Trustee Smith.
Thank you. I believe this was the February 18th. It's under old business ordinance 25-0-2. This was about the zoning ordinance for planned development. It notes that everybody voted aye, but I actually voted nay. I'd like to have that corrected.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that was the board meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. With that correction, accept the correction?
Yes, I'll
Motion?
accept the correction.
And the second?
Lillian, you need to accept the
Accept the,
correction.
yeah, okay. Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes with that correction? Say
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. Last item at Board of Trustees meeting, the approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting for March 4th. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. The Finance Director's report, the first item there is approval of the bills. Do I have a motion for approval of the bills, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Are there any questions or comments? Trustee Clayton, please.
Just out of curiosity, I see that there's a bill for the Lake County Municipal League. I'm not familiar with that. Is there what benefits and what do we do?
I believe we've been a member of that for a number of years, and we have meetings periodically, and it's like the IML, the Illinois
And only
Municipal
is-
League, only Lake
the
County. So we have access to our state senators much easier that way.
Right. And what's the LCTA, which is the next one?
LCTA.
Lake County Transit Authority? I don't know, just guessing.
I would have to double check that, but I believe it is the Lake County Transit Agency.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
have to
you're
look into
jogging my
that one.
memory.
It's like
Yeah,
Agency.
that one
agency.
too, we've been a member of we've also been a member of that for quite some time. And those are very, I think they're de minimis
I think that one is 300
$300,
for
yeah.
the membership dues for that one.
membership. Right.
Yes. Yes.
I can look up to confirm. Alliance, Transit Alliance. The alphabet soup, Lake County Transportation Alliance.
Transportation Alliance, yeah. We've had need of them lately, frankly. Are there any questions? Did you have, Trustee Jamerson?
On page 6 of 12, which is actually page 42 in the packet, under Emmy Bach, the $25,200, I believe, was for the new temperature control system in this building. Shouldn't it be a capital expenditure as opposed to a maintenance expenditure? I mean, it was a total replacement of the system. I would think that would be capital and not, you don't have to, I mean.
No, I'll review that. We review all large items with the auditors annually, but I'll mark that one as one to
It just
note.
seems like it should be a capital expense to me.
Categorization,
It's a huge number. It was a total replacement of the system, so,
The auditors are in, and it's a good time to ask.
Yes.
thank you. That's all I had.
Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastmont?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander? Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Trustee, Director Vasquez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to highlight a few items about the budget tonight. But before that, I want to give a quick update on the health insurance item that I've discussed in recent board meetings. After review of the union contract language regarding that's specific to the health insurance program, the police union, I'm sorry, we decided it would be best to defer this decision on the IPBC program until a later time. As far as the budget goes, I know we've discussed some of these bullet points during the appropriations hearing. Again, the numbers were developed based on discussion from the finance workshop. A detailed budget draft was provided to the board on March 7th for review and comments. Trustee Clayton and I had a chance to review the document together before it was sent out to the rest of the board. No adjustments were made after that draft was distributed. A few highlights from the general fund. 2024 had some large non-recurring activity that essentially offset each other. Approximately $1 million was received from Lake County for stormwater storage at the Federal Life property, while the village expended approximately $950,000 for our acquisition of that part for our part of that Federal Life property. As I noted earlier, 2024 interest revenue far exceeded expectations at about $490,000, but due to market uncertainty, we continued to budget conservatively for that revenue item in 2025. I'd also like to note that $12,000 was added for potential communications needs in 2025. In the MFT fund, street maintenance expenses increased to $1.2 million due to additional costs associated with the Saunders Road project. In the water fund, we have a reduced scope of capital projects in 2025 compared to 2024. Also sent to the board and included in the packet was a table showing the surplus or deficit for the general, MFT, water, and sewer funds to give an idea of how these funds are currently operating on a revenue versus expense basis. For 2025, the general fund does show a deficit of approximately $160,000 once you remove the $300,000 contingency item. However, it should be noted that we did move over snow removal expenses from MFT to the general fund for this year due to the additional needs for the MFT to help support the additional work for the Saunders Road project, which resulted in an additional $140,000 in the general fund budget. The MFT shows a $1 million deficit. However, this is due to the large expense of the upcoming Saunders Road project, and the MFT fund should have enough funds to cover that large expense. The water fund shows a $170,000 deficit. We greatly reduced capital projects for the year, and on $100,000 of the budgeted expenses are a contingency for water main replacement if needed. The sewer fund has a $335,000 deficit, which is mostly due to needed capital projects for the upcoming year. It should also be noted that in 2024, we had a surplus of $375,000 in the sewer fund. Overall, as we wrap up the budget and appropriations tonight, the audit season is in full swing with field work beginning yesterday. After the audit is completed and presented in early summer, I plan to begin the 2026 budget process in July with the finance workshop again in the fall, and this time with a goal of bringing the budget and appropriations to the board at December of this year instead of March. So that's my goal for this year. Finally, I'd like to thank the mayor, the board members, the department heads, and the village attorney for all your help in completing the budget this year. While I've had a little bit more time to get familiar with the village's various funds and projects than where I was at this time last year, there's still a lot of history and context that you all helped provide in preparing the document for tonight. So again, thank you all.
Are there any questions for our director? Okay, moving forward, Treasurer's report is next on the agenda. He's not with us this evening. Next on the agenda is the Director of Community Services. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm pleased to announce that our new part-time building inspector has finally joined the team here at Village Hall. George Norberg started on March 10th. George has a solid history in working with the construction trades at various levels, and his many years of working for the Village of Highland Park as a plans examiner and building inspector, so I believe that he will fit right in. He's doing well so far. Next topic, tree removal for Federal Life Village Hall and Saunders Road. As you may remember from a previous report, the tree removal on a Federal Life property and along Saunders Road was up against the March 31st deadline for removal with a concern over the habitat of the long-eared bat, since IDOT is involved in these two sites. The tree removal has to be completed no later than March 31st. And that work is complete at the Federal Life site. And some logs still need to be removed along Saunders Road. The trees scheduled for removal at Village Hall have been cut down. They're not subject to the March 31st deadline. The logs have yet to be picked up. You may see the stack over at the parking lot if you can see through the darkness. And all the work on that project should be completed by March 31st. The removal of trees along Saunders Road has caused some concern for residents We're not pleased that they were not notified with an approximate time frame for the removal. Though the removal of those trees has been the subject of repeated reports of the village board meetings and also dates back to the original public hearings, which I understand occurred before my time back in 2022. We certainly acknowledge we could have done a better job in communicating the pending removal directly to affected residents along Saunders Road, and for that we publicly apologize. We are taking this as a learning experience, and in the future we'll notify residents of activities occurring within the road right away in front of their homes where at all possible. That obviously can't occur in emergent situations. However, where we can and have planned projects, we plan to make those notifications. The project also has built into the specifications the replanting of at least 70 trees, which we will use strategically to help mitigate the loss of some of the trees. I also see Saunders Road as a destination for planting of trees that the county has offered to compensate for the loss of trees under the Deerfield Road expansion project. Though that won't occur for a year or two, or probably at least 2 years, nonetheless, I think Saunders Road would be a prime location for planting of additional trees. The next milestone for the project is in June when it gets let for bids. We are planning to hold a neighborhood meeting before then to inform the residents of what to expect during the remainder of the project. It'll basically be a presentation, but a question and answer meeting. Moving on, bids were received last week for the hazardous tree program, which last went into effect, I believe, in 2021, 2022. And I'll speak to that topic a little later this evening under new business. On another topic, I'd like to just announce that there are a lot of development projects happening within the village right now. Start with the Federal Life site. The demolition contractor started demolishing the building structure today. The project is about 5 weeks behind the original project schedule due to the extended period of time that it took to get all the utilities disconnected from the building. However, due to the county's expansion of Deerfield Road being severely delayed because of site acquisition reasons, that original completion date is really inconsequential. We're not up against a time frame to which the county is dependent upon this work being completed. The work has also begun on a demolition of the abandoned reservoir. The demolition of the building structure itself will take about 4 weeks. Orphans of the Storm. The Staff Review Committee met 2 weeks ago to internally review the special use permit application that was submitted by Orphans. The committee had many concerns over the proposal and is working with the Orphans architect for resolution before the project can move forward to the Plan Commission for their review and consideration. Some things at shops. A new fire alarm system is being installed throughout the building. It resolves the issue that fire code requires a building to have one fire alarm panel. That building actually had 3. How it got that way, don't know. One of the systems was very antiquated, which happened to be at the Baby Vegas location. That caused major delay in this whole process. However, Baby Vegas build out is proceeding. They have, I understand, installed drywall, but I have no anticipated opening date, and supposedly they are still interested in opening up to do gaming there. Additionally, we have discussed the condition of the fence in back of shops in Colonial Court with Tom Flanagan, who indicated that he will work with Avalon regarding it. Moving to Colonial Court. Within the last week and a half, we've had 2 new businesses that are looking to open in Colonial Court. The first is a math tutoring school, and the other sells frozen food products. No consumption on site, but they sell products. The school has actually applied for a sign permit this week, which will need to get forwarded to the ZBA, though the chair is not aware of this before now. And they will review that as acting as the sign review committee and give their recommendation for approval or not. Walters Kluwer. Property has finally been sold. Contract was closed last week. We're meeting with the developer later this week to review an initial proposal for residential housing on the property. Chudy subdivision. We're meeting with the developer next week to finalize the plats for the subdivision. As you may remember, the project was conditionally approved by the Plan Commission back in January of this year. The final plats need to be brought back to the village board for approval, and that will likely occur in April. 2 other items. First, Staff is working with GHA to prepare to collect data to prepare for an audit which will occur on June 10th through FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. As you know, the rating system looks at our performance as far as permitting and public outreach, and scoring well after the audit may result in at least a 5% drop in homeowner flood insurance rates if we do well. And second, we held a kickoff meeting last week to implement the SeeClick Fix software system. SeeClick Fix is basically a 311 solution that accepts through either the website or through a resident's phone just by downloading their app to route, manage, and to accept, route, and manage any public service requests that we can build into the system. What we're hoping for is that the system should expedite requests for service and general information, and should be able to automatically respond to certain requests without the direct involvement of staff, or as we monitor things, we can jump in and work with residents directly. The anticipated launch date for that program is May 12th. And that's the end of the report.
Are there any questions or comments for our director? Seeing none, moving forward. Consultants' reports, our village attorney, please.
I just would supplement in terms of development items going on in the village. We continue to get inquiries about the landfill parcel as well. Nothing concrete yet to report, but we've been asked about a number of some type of distribution warehouse was suggested to us. We suggested they figure out if they can get a traffic signal onto Milwaukee, and I guess they decided that that might not be possible, at least without reconfiguring the project that they had in mind. So, again, it's in play, but nothing concrete to report. I am working on an update to the village's affordable housing plan. We did the affordable housing ordinance, so it may seem strange that we have to redo our plan. Well, part of the logic of redoing the plan is to take into account what we just did with the ordinance. Part of it is that a law went into effect that requires that by June of this year, our plan include 2 additional components that it did not include when we last revised it, which was in 2020. So I'm trying to address the 2 new items that we have to mention in the plan, and also sort of update for the change in the land use patterns that we've had in the village. The 2020 revision highlighted some of what could have happened on the federal life parcel. It's not possible anymore. So the idea is to bring this back to the board at some point, so we under the new law also, we have to schedule a public hearing before we can adopt an amendment to the plan. So we'll have to do that at some point, work with the mayor about that. So I think that's all I have. I will be bringing back to the board, as you know, I've been talking about some updates to the personnel manual. Trustee Dickin had worked with me on the social media policy. There's probably 5 other policies that have to be updated. I've been working with the firm that's our insurance provider provides to us free of charge, who are very expert in issues dealing with our personnel matters, and trying to get some of the templates and some of the things we need to update. Some of these policies they don't really affect the village that much, but we're required to have them, and we're required to update them according to the various laws, at least as they existed back on January 1. So I'll be bringing those back to the board, I hope, in the near future. That's it.
Trustee Hollander?
Do you think that the affordable housing plan will be completed prior to when Walters Kluwer presents something to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I think that their initial plan is preliminary. By the time that it gets in shape to actually be a formal submittal to the Plan Commission, we should be through with the plan, updating the housing plan.
Any other comments, questions for our village attorney? Seeing none, moving on. Plan Commission report, Chair Brightcoff.
Good evening, everyone. I have nothing to report. It's a long walk, but I'll entertain any questions.
Are there any questions for our chair? Thank you very much. If you could take the microphone to.
Be glad to.
Next on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report. Chair Graditor.
And I would have allowed Chairman Braykoff to do it for me because I ditto exactly what she said. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, but apparently you will. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for our chair? Okay, moving forward, police report, Chief.
The police activity is in your packets. The activity actually goes through, I believe, the 14th because I had to have it in for the board. But we had some additional activity since then on March, or actually went through the 12th. And on March 14th, during the early morning hours, around 3 in the morning, one of my officers discovered 2 restaurant burglaries in the shops of Riverwoods. They'd been broken into and burglarized overnight, and just some cash was taken. Also that night, several other towns experienced similar burglaries, and we have read about them in the paper. It's been happening a lot in the northern suburbs. We are actively working with other communities that were affected. We've been to meetings, and we are following up on leads for those burglaries. I also want to report that we auctioned off our 2021 Dodge Durango police car at open off auction service for $12,701. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief? Trustee Dickon, please.
Quick question. I noticed that the number for suspicious vehicles this year more than doubled from last year. Are you seeing any trends in terms of who these folks are and why they're here?
Not really. I think it's just, it's just a blip. None of them have panned out to be anything, of note. So there's been no serious reports or anything like that.
So we do investigate, but there's.
Yeah, we've been able to determine that they were all innocent, that nobody was up to anything. So I think it's just a blip.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our chief? Thank you, and thank you for your service. Fire district report. We have a representative, a new representative for us. We have a battalion commander, right? Correct? Tyler Reynolds with us. Do we have any questions for our fire district at this point? Thank you very much. Oh, yeah. Trustee Jamerson.
Can you remind us of when the open houses are for the new fire station? Isn't there 2 meetings coming up?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about
Tyler.
that. Sorry, I believe the next open house meeting will be at our Fire Station 53, 671 Woodlands Parkway on the 27th at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have put that in the newsletter just in terms of referencing the fire district's website, and the information is there as well. So we've tried to publicize that. Next on the agenda, visitors wishing to address the board on issues not on the agenda. Sir, would you like to step forward? Thank you.
I'm not sure if this actually falls under the agenda.
We'll let you know.
Not, but I didn't see when I could talk about the agenda. I'm William Myers. I'm representing myself and Susan Hyman, whose trees were taken 2 days ago purportedly to get approval for $3.5 million for road improvements. Was all this cutting truly necessary? We first learned of the tree cutting on Saunders Road only late last week without time to appeal to anyone. Keeping this from affected homeowners until too late to react just to beat a deadline for tree removal to preserve a bat habitat is unconscionable. Is Riverwoods more interested in federal money to add a shoulder than to be committed to the local environment? People choose Riverwoods for the large properties with many trees, unlike other suburbs west of the Edens. Residents need better and more personal communication from city employees. No individual warning to affected residents was attempted. as told to me by Mr. Witt. Is that not required? I do note that he has apologized to both of us personally, and it was witnessed by Chief Daniel, who came at Mr. Witt's request when I parked in front of our doomed trees on Death Row to protect them. Killing of 18-year-old trees that might or might not die from root cutting during regrading and without notice before the March 31st deadline to save habitats for bats is, well, batty. Regarding future action plans, as our trees have already been lost, I request that the documents concerning the IDOT state requirements for tree cutting along roads to be provided to all affected property owners at least 1 month prior to the destruction of property. Why are some properties spared, such as all along Port Wine Road and the trees on a berm 2 houses north of us? Are we not entitled to equal protection under the law? Please provide detailed federal, state, and local guidances to affected property owners. I recommend for major projects such as the Saunders Road reconstruction and Deerfield Road reconstruction that a special webpage with all relevant documents is preferable to having to go through board minutes going back for several years. And finally, I request that affected Riverwoods residents be connected immediately with the city ecologist forestry consultant regarding the replacement of trees to be planted well before the end of this year's growing season. 5 30-foot trees should be replaced with 5 equivalent 30-foot trees, or if not available, with equal privacy and headlight protection afforded by the same linear feet of 6 to 8 foot trees. Alternatively, the city should pay the amount needed for full privacy to be restored by the tree service of the resident's choice. That would be equitable in return for the taking for a process similar to eminent domain. If this process continues, I suggest Riverwoods be renamed River-Woods, pronounced River-Woods, to reflect the loss of over 1,000 trees, just to allow non-residents to pass through at higher speed. And then on a separate issue, which was also brought up briefly by Mr. Witt, our driveway has been left in disarray, partially repaired this past week after unsuccessful attempts to find a water leak. No leak has been identified. We suspect this is under Saunders Road. The mitigation has been extremely slow as we first reported this over 2 years ago, and we hope and expect progress in the near future. Thank you.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to respond. I think Director Witt gave a lot of information at the beginning. If you have a written list that we could take a look at and respond to you,
I can
because there are
send
plans.
this.
Absolutely. I don't know if that would be considered, clerk. Would that be considered then a FOIA request? Okay. There are plans that have been public and so forth, and we will, again, he apologized, and we plan to have a meeting specifically with the residents of Saunders Road
That
to
should
talk
have
about
occurred
this
2
and
months
what's,
ago.
and yes, we did what was required. Unfortunately, we should have gone
Individual
further.
notification
We
is
should have
not
gone further.
required?
We should have gone further.
Okay.
We should have gone further.
Appreciate it.
if
Thank you, Mr. Hollander, for speaking with Susan. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on night on the agenda? Okay, moving forward. Information and comments from the president. Again, a reminder, if you haven't filed your statement of economic interest, please do so. I think not everybody has filed. So, if May 1st is the deadline. Next on the agenda here is the high school engagement program. We talked about this I believe at the last board meeting, and per that discussion, we did put an article in the newsletter for parents of high school students to volunteer for if they were interested in volunteering with the RRA and the RPC, and we talked with each of those organizations prior to putting that article in the newsletter, and they were very excited about getting volunteers. So we put that article in. Additionally, we've spoken with Gaywald Hamilton, who has a program in place for high school students in the area who are interested, or to introduce them to engineering. And Stevenson High School has participated in these programs, but Deerfield High School has not yet been engaged. These are school-sanctioned and monitored programs. The names of them, they're kind of interesting. They do have, Gaywald has an emerging young professionals group that conducts an annual day where they coordinate with specific high schools to come to the office and get a taste of engineering. They call it Career Day, and they are working on expanding to more schools. They also have started a program back up to introduce, it's called Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day. And that is, their goal is to hold that annually and open it up to high school girls. So we've got some things going along those lines, which, sound very interesting and helpful and hopeful. So the other thing I wanted to mention was the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District, whose future seems to be a bit unclear at this point. I did go to their first meeting of the year, and there are a number of board members who are planning to resign. And it's most interesting because we were very concerned about the appointees wanting to close the board down. As these appointees have come on board and become educated, they have become champions of the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District. However, now there are some people who are on the board who are, they're resigning. The chair of the Lake County Board has full authority to appoint people to that board, and in the past has chosen not to give Riverwoods a seat on that board. And Trustee Dickon, yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but with 2 new board members coming in, could you give a little more background on the mosquito abatement program and why we're part of this, just so that it's a little easier for them
one
to
of
get
our
on
new
board?
One of our new board members actually has worked with me on the South Lake Mosquito Abatement Board and helped put together their decennial report. And Les, I believe you're familiar with the South Lake Mosquito Abatement Board as well? You'll get up to speed. Okay. And that is the group, there are 5 communities that are in that district, and it's a coordinated effort to control mosquitoes, and that's related to vector-borne diseases and so forth. So it's unclear what's going to happen going forward. We will stay on top of it. Interestingly enough, I was requested to write a letter to Senator Julie Morrison, who in the past has indicated that she was not necessarily a full supporter of this board, but a letter of support because she has introduced a bill to the Illinois State Senate that calls for a One Health task force. And one of the One Health task force goals is to promote interdisciplinary communication and collaboration between physicians, veterinarians, and other scientific professionals to promote the health and well-being of residents, animals, and the environment in Illinois. That includes vector-borne diseases. So maybe we've got a little change of heart here. The North Shore Mosquito Abatement District is supporting this bill, and the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District is also supporting this bill. So it's unclear at most. Trustee Hollander, please, and then Trustee Eastman.
Do we know what it would cost for us to do it for our own community? I mean,
Somebody's
I
smiling in
understand
the
that if-
back because she
No,
knows.
that's the whole Lake County, but for us, this is maybe a bigger issue than a lot of the other parts of Lake County, and I don't know, is this
Well,
$20,000 a year, or is it $250,000 a year?
Right now on our tax bill, we pay about $25 a year. So
Each household.
Each household. So
It's a lot of money.
It's a fair amount, but it is not as much as it would cost us. I don't have an exact number on that. I think that what we would lose, as well as having an increased cost, an immediate increased cost to our budget as opposed to on the tax bill, I think we would lose the coordination of effort. Right now, we spray according to what's going on in a larger environment. Deerfield, not Lincolnshire, Deerfield, Highland Park, Highwood, Bannockburn. And so what's going on there, if they need more or less spraying, if they target spray, all those kinds of things. We would lose that coordination. We would also lose, I think we would lose a little bit of coordination with the health department as well. Trustee Eastman, did you have something to add to that, please?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, how much time would we likely have? I mean, you may not know at this point, but to react and put something in place were it to be dissolved, right? Would there be a 6-month period, a year period, or would there be no discernible transition period?
I wrote to Clark, who is really the backbone of this whole operation, and I asked them if they had a contract in place for this year. I've not gotten a response yet, gotten a response back. I think they're kind of wondering what's going on with this too. But as far as I know, this year we'll continue to have execution on the part of Clark. I don't think everybody's rolling off at the same time, but there are only 5 board members. And it's a shame. And all we can do is keep pushing and keep being aware and go to the meetings. And there are 3 of us trying to cover it, myself, Laura Trevino, and Rich Kumjian, trying to cover the meetings. They're once a month on the second Monday of the month. Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, it seems to me that would not take a lot of time to be proactive on this, on the assumption that it is going to go away. I think it would at least be a good idea to get a bid from Clark and see what they would recommend
As
for
I
our
said,
little
I've asked
community.
him.
And then at the future time, the board could decide if they how they want to handle it. But I would rather than being reactive in this case, because it appears that it's a good possibility that we ought to be a little proactive. And
This is like a 1-week-old issue.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought we've been talking about it for about 8 months now.
We've been talking about it for a lot longer. We were trying to get our place on the board.
Right.
We didn't get a place on the board. I went to Lake County, the board meeting, and asked for a place on the board. Didn't get a place on the board. And as these new board members came on, they were converted. But we kept going to the meetings to keep our toe in the water. This is a brand new development. This isn't that the new board members who have been, are one by one saying, I can't do it anymore for various personal and sundry reasons. So that was not known, that we would have board openings until last week.
Chris?
So, yes,
So
Trustee Smith.
is there, excuse me, President Ford, is there a way then, I know you asked for board seats a while back. Is there a way to request board seats again as people are resigning? And I'd be happy to be part of that if you'd like me to be.
I'd be delighted. And yes, I believe there is a way. When we get to Lake County and we get into the boardroom at Lake County, understand that it becomes a Democrat-Republican issue as well. And that weaves its way into some of these appointments. So it gets a little tricky, but yes, we can go again to that. The ultimate authority for appointment is with the Lake County Board Chair, Sandy Hart. And so that's where we've got to push and whatever. This letter to Senator Morrison, who is close to Chair Hart, hoping that, that we're showing that we can be supportive. We can be supportive.
Chris, is it coincidence that there are, I think you mentioned 5 communities that are part of South Lake, and there's 5 chairs, members, excuse me, but we don't have a seat?
That's right. There 3 are from Deerfield and 2 are from Highland Park.
So shouldn't we disperse that, make it more geographically dispersed?
Absolutely, that was the issue, and I believe one of my pieces of correspondence with one of our state representatives gave him some language for amending the
bylaws.
statute.
Yeah, right.
So it's, yeah.
Okay. Well, just if there's anything I can do to help, I'm more than willing.
So glad to have your volunteer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Smith.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that very much. So I will keep you up to date. And if we need a cadre of residents to go to the Lake County Board meeting, we'll put a message out for that as well. So moving forward, new business. First item of business is approval of the appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Do I have a motion, please? Oh, first reading, damn. We have a motion for first reading.
I'd like to make a motion to waive first reading.
Wait first, thank you. There, see, he picked it up. Do I have a second, please? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Do I have a motion for second reading and approval, please?
I'll make a motion for second reading and approval of the appropriation ordinance for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion, any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander? Aye. Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Second item of business, approval of the contract for hazardous tree removal with Lucas. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My apologies, because it appears that my cover memorandum did not make it into the packet. So it's been about 3 years since trees were removed throughout the village as part of the hazardous tree removal program. This year, we sent out a request for a proposal to 9 tree service contractors who were recommended by the village forester. Bids were opened on March 10th, and only one bid was received. That bid was from Lucas Landscaping and Design. Lucas was the contractor that performed the tree removal and pruning services back in 2022. So based on their previous experience with the program, we recommend that a contract be awarded to Lucas to provide similar services this year. Please note that this contract also covers services for emergency tree removal, which the Lucas contract 3 years ago did not. And it also includes removal of invasive shrubs as part of the village's cost share program, should residents choose to use Lucas versus their own contractor. And under the program, residents will have the opportunity to select a tree service contractor of their choice or use the unit price program with Lucas. So the proposal is totally based on unit pricing. So there's no way I could tell you what the exact number of the value of this contract would be. However, we are looking for an approval to approve a contract with Lucas Landscaping and Design based on the unit pricing that came forth from their proposal.
Any questions or comments?
Well,
Trustee Jamerson, please.
Thank you. I just have one comment, and I had kind of mentioned it to Director Witt earlier today. There are 4 trees, numbers 264 through 267, that are actually shown on the list in the proposal. That are actually shown to be Village of Riverwood trees, but in fact, they're not. They either belong to 3210 Blackthorn or 385 Thorn Meadow. So not that it's a big deal, but we don't want to get charged for those trees, so.
We have taken note of that, Trustee Jamerson, and we will make sure that the appropriate party is notified and billed for those services.
Trustee Hollander, please.
When we notify residents of a tree that needs to come down,
yes,
would the notification include what they would be charged if they used the village contracted services?
That is how the program was set up 3 years ago, and we plan to repeat that this year.
Okay.
So it'll tell them how many trees, certain size, what the unit cost is, what the total cost is, so that they can use that, in the back of their mind to
as a
go to
guide for
somebody
picking
else.
their own.
to determine whether or not their tree contractor, is right in the same realm, if they're too high, too low. Again, it's the resident's choice. They'll have a cutoff time period to decide whether or not they use their own or they need Lucas so that we can get the program moving.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
Are there any other? Trustee Clayton, please.
Just a process question. There's a tree on my property, just as an example, that I've already taken down. So what process does a homeowner go through at this point the tree's not there, so obviously you can tell that, but is there some letter or proof that you require at this point?
We can actually dispatch the village forester out to the property. If that tree was actually marked with either red or green paint, then it would have been part of the program. So what we would just do is if we know the address, we have the village forester go out. They can make a determination that it's done, and the notice would not go out to the homeowner. We would consider that case closed based on a report that the village forester would submit to us.
Do I have a motion for approval of the contract with Lucas, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Any other questions? Roll call.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander? Aye. Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dakin?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item of business is approval of a change order for demolition work on the Federal Life property. Director Witt, please.
Okay. So the contractor that was previous issued to WB Olson for the demolition of the Federal Life building and the abandoned water reservoir inadvertently does not include the demolition of some of the site features, particularly the driveway and parking lot lighting and foundations, as well as the flagpole. So the contractor has put forth a change order request for the removal of those items, which need to be taken care of prior to any of the mass grading that will occur in the near future on that site. The total amount of that change order comes to $20,675, and it's done on a unit price per pole. And I think there's 45 lighting poles, plus the additional flagpole as part of that change order.
Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions, comments?
Just a real quick
Trustee
one.
Jamerson, please.
It says the foundations, the conduits, and the wiring. So they're going to remove all of the conduits that's underground.
That's what they say, and that's what we'll look for.
We'll find out when they
it's gonna
dig
be
for the
extremely. I think personally, it's extremely tedious and probably above and beyond what needs to happen. We're really interested in the poles and the
Right.
foundations.
The bases are the most
But
important
the base,
part.
whatever comes out of the ground, we certainly want them to yank up and remove.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other question? Roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson? Aye. Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dakin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item of business, approval of a resolution authorizing termination of the Nordic Energy Aggregation Agreement. May I ask our village attorney to walk us through?
Our aggregation energy supplier is Nordic Energy. As you know, they gave the village a notice last August after an auction occurred that upset the pricing completely for their contract. They told us they couldn't perform it anymore. I think it increased that component of their project many, many times. It wasn't just a small percentage. So therefore, they were able to invoke a clause in the contract for material adverse change, which means something so unexpected and beyond their control that they're entitled to try and reprice it. We pretty much suspected that we were going to end up at this point where we just can't go forward with them. They said they were looking at alternatives. We were waiting for there's always some other auction occurring someplace else. I don't pretend to understand any of it. But in any event, they really didn't get back to us until more recently to our consultant and said that they can't, the price that they were offering for the second year of our contract was higher than ComEd. And so therefore, the consultant recommended that we just drop back to ComEd. The timing is supposed to be in May, in time for ComEd to be able to read meters. The Nordic Energy may or may not, I asked Mike Mudge, Trustee Jamerson, whether are they required to give a notice? ComEd has to give a notice. Nordic Energy said, did the village want to give a notice? I guess there's a question is, how many notices do you want our residents to get? Does it really help for us to say to the residents, energy markets got very volatile. There's really nothing we could do. We're sorry, but we're just taking a pause in the program right now because they're too volatile to secure a good price for 2 or 3 years. Although we've, in the past we've saved money, but right now it just seems to be very difficult. So in order to get us, there were a few emails where Nordic Energy said, well, we'll just allow you to drop back to ComEd. Okay, everyone's okay with that. I said, wait a second, don't we have to have a termination agreement? Don't we have to something that says we're ending our agreement? And so they prepared a resolution, which we dressed up to say that we're authorized to enter into an agreement to terminate it on terms that we approve. They did get me a form of termination agreement just this afternoon, which I haven't had a chance to read. But the main idea is that neither side has any continuing liability. We release them, they release us. It's the idea. We're just kind of saying, okay, it didn't work out. Have a good life. This would give us the ability to continue negotiating the termination agreement that they sent us and to execute it. As you say in the resolution, it says that we can terminate the agreement provided that in no event shall there be any early termination or unwinding costs payable by the village to Nordic Energy on account of the termination. So we're just looking for approval of the resolution. If the termination agreement is as simple as I'm hoping, it's 2 pages, then I don't think we'll need to bring it back to the board as long as it complies with the provision in the resolution, unless you'd like to see it.
Are there any questions? Oh, good. Trustee Jamerson.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, that's you're our guy here,
Yeah, well, blame it on me. That's okay. So going back to ComEd is actually going to save the people in the program a few cents a kilowatt hour. I'm sure we can get a list of participants from somebody. Nordic Energy must have a list. If we want to send out a notice, I don't think it's really necessary. It's not like they're going to get a second bill. If they don't get a second bill, it's all on one bill now. And unless you really look at your bill, which I'm guessing a lot of people don't pay a whole lot of attention to the individual line items, it may cause more confusion than it's worth, and maybe we should just handle it on a one-by-one basis. I honestly don't know how many people are in the program. It's not as many as there were in the very beginning when we were saving tons of money. Although I think we will lose the green option, which is unfortunate. But anyways, that's just my comment.
Thank you.
It is what it is, but I'm not sure that it's worth muddying the waters more by sending out a notice to everybody. It's my opinion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second, please? Roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last item of new business, approval of an extension to the maintenance contract with Emmy Bach in an amount not to exceed $7,700. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So in front of you tonight, we have an extension of a contract with Emmy Bach. They are the mechanical contractor who has been servicing Village Hall and the police department, both on a maintenance program and also on some of the special projects that we've had. They were under contract for a year, which expired in June of 2024, something like that. I apologize, I don't have that date in front of me. That was for a period of 1 year, and this contract kind of got lost in my system with regard to our trying to bring all contracts due and coming to a conclusion on December 31st. We're trying to get all these contracts on a fiscal year instead of things that have just been haphazard. So this particular contract would take them for a year and a half through December 31st, 2025. Should be noted that the prices, though they look higher than the previous contract, when you back out how many quarters that they're actually working, the price has been held the same as it was before. It's just that this is a longer contract, so by multiplying how long they're doing it, we come up with the same numbers. So again, this is really trying to get them back on board for general service maintenance on the systems. And this will take it through December 31st and get this last contract on an annual basis, concluding with your
Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions and comments? Trustee Jamerson, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I might have misheard you the first time. It's for, this contract's for more than a year or less than a year? Because the contract, well, that's the question. Because it says it's only April 1st, 25 to December 31st, 2025.
Okay.
And I thought I heard you say 26.
It is through 26. The original copy that came through said 202, and it was missing the 6.
Oh.
And I think the 5 got inadvertently put in through the end of the year, but this is through 2026. So it's essentially for a year and 3 quarters.
Okay. Thank you.
I did not see that on here.
Oh. Are there any other questions or comments?
I think just a comment. So Director Witt,
Trustees.
you'll get an updated contract that then has the appropriate dates on it, correct?
Yes, we'll contact them tomorrow. We'll get a new one put in before anything moves forward.
Perfect.
And obviously, if something changes to that, we would have to bring it back in front of you.
Any other questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to old business. First item of old business, only item of old business, approval of an ordinance amending provisions of the village code regulating the burning of landscape waste. Our village attorney can lead us through.
Well, hope springs eternal. One of the things we find sometimes is that if you just back away from what your first effort was and try again with other wording, you might just hit upon a solution. In this case, rather than try to restate the entire ordinance, we just looked at a couple of definitions and one section. The concept really is that open burning would be conducted with a permit. The permit would be valid for 90 days. You could do burning anytime during that 90 days. You can renew the permit every 90 days. Most people aren't going to need to renew a permit consistently, but if they have something to burn, they can either get it done within the 90 days or calendar quarter, I assume, or they can renew it. And the definition of the fuel area, I think we had this in the one of the newer drafts a couple of months back, was taken out of the fire code at the time, which specified a smaller size pile than what we had. But we, as one of the trustees had asked, we accepted the case of a restoration burn because we know in those instances people do pile up some of the buckthorn or whatever they're burning in a different way, and that's pursuant to permit anyway. So this is an effort at trying to meet a lot of the different concerns that the board has had in different ways. I know it probably won't satisfy everyone, but it's just another attempt at that. We know that the residents continue to contact the village who are affected by the burning that's been going on. I think from some of the comments I've seen, they're not 100% satisfied with this either. But again, there's no perfect ordinance. That much I'm pretty sure of.
Do I have a motion to waive
So moved.
first reading? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Do I have a motion for second reading and approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Discussion, please. Trustee Clayton?
And listening to the residents that have come and talked to us, it struck me that a lot of what was referenced was actually violations of the current village code, and that the issue was more of a performance, more of a enforcement issue than it was a wording of the ordinance issue. So my question would be to whoever is going to enforce this is, do you feel like this is something that the village can enforce, and it's going to be a reasonable approach to what it is we're trying to accomplish here?
100% feel that that's the case. I've had discussion with both the fire district as well as the police department, because generally those two entities would be the ones that are going to do the field work on this. Part of the permitting process that I have proposed to the mayor, and we've already implemented this morning on a burn that started at 7 o'clock, is that with each permit that goes out, and part of this process is to know who is actually doing the burning. Once we understand who that is, what we do is I have started to generate aerial maps of the property. And from there, I evaluate the setback requirements, 50 feet from any structure, as well as no burning within any other required front, side, or rear yards. Once all of that is done, I highlight the areas where burns are actually permitted, and you'll find that those are extremely restricted on most properties. However, that would then go not only to our file, it would go to the police department and the fire department. So if there is indeed a call, they can go to the site, show the resident the same copy that they have. Here's where you're allowed to do it. The particular case this morning was that the resident felt that he was within his rights as far as where that burn was occurring. But once you look at the map, you find out that he probably had to move to a different location. And the other one that we've had on Sherry would find out that they were burning too close to the property line, from what I understand. So this will help move things further away from other neighbors, as well as enforcing the nuisance aspect of it, which I don't believe that the nuisance determination is something that the resident should do. That should be done by the village to determine whether or not that's indeed the case. The burn today, the smoke was going straight up. I don't consider that a nuisance. If we're in a wind situation where it's blowing the smoke in through somebody's house or towards somebody's house, I would consider that a nuisance. So with getting the permits on a regular basis and the issuance of that particular map, I think we'll be able to tighten up the aspect of where you can do it and when you can do it, and also make it easier for the enforcement so that we could see on a visual basis that you're where you should be or you're not where you should be.
Trustee Dickon, please.
Yes. Are those permits going to be free, and under which conditions can those permits be denied, and under which conditions can extension for a permit be denied?
All right, so the way it is currently within the code, the permit cost would be $50 for each quarter that they do, and we're doing it by quarter. So we'll have the dates on there, first, second, third, or fourth. The type of burn, and the type of open burning, whether it's open burning of landscape waste, agricultural burn, the prescribed burns, or a bonfire would have to come in for permits. Things like a bonfire would really need to be looked at by the fire district to make sure that they don't have issues with them, as well as the village. So yes, there will be some oversight as far as what happens. The other piece of information, which is critical here, is that the mayor has the ability to post an alert whether that be for fire alert, which 8 states are under currently because of the high winds and the dry conditions. And I would consider Riverwoods being within those same kind of conditions as of today, or whether or not there are heavier winds that are blowing in certain directions, or other high temperature conditions, or, a period of drought for a particular amount of time, that those alerts will get posted on the village website. The permit actually has, as I have it currently written, a requirement for a resident to check the village website on the day of the burn to make sure that there is no alert that is in place. It puts the onus on the resident, but it also allows the police department, our department, or the fire district the opportunity to just look on your phone in the field to see whether or not there's alert there and whether or not enforcement action should occur.
One last question. With spring cleanup coming up and a lot of landscapers doing, open burns, are we going to be taking any measures to make sure that they're notified of the fact that they actually need a permit to dispose of all that landscape waste?
We can certainly attempt a broadcast to them. We don't have a list of every contractor that's ever going to come into the village.
Residents?
But bottom line is, the person, i.e. the homeowner taking out the permit, would be responsible to let their contractor know that these are conditions that it has to occur. So someone who is actually burning without a permit, that citation could actually just go straight to the homeowner, which is where it belongs because they own the property.
Okay, and when you say bonfire, you mean like a giant bonfire, not like a little fire pit?
The bonfire is, yes, open thing, a hole in the ground type of deal, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts type of, the typical thing that you have in your head on what more like a campfire, but not necessarily contained by a fire pit or rocks, some kind of enclosure.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Smith.
Yeah, so I think this is a dramatic improvement in what we've been talking about, and I really like the aspect of also being able to prevent nuisance smoke from entering nearby properties, not just homes, but properties. So I think that's a really nice add for the benefit of some of those neighbors that are currently affected. The question I had was the permit, I'm going to read it to make sure I say it correctly. The permit may be rescinded at any time when the foregoing conditions cannot be satisfied or are not completed within blah, 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 blah. My question to you then is, who's doing the rescission? And so in an event when smoke is entering a property, an adjacent property, or is not within the map, and is that like an immediate rescission of the permit? And how does that get communicated to the police and or the offending property owner, and perhaps the non-offending property owners as well? I'm just wondering about how does that actually work? The procedure for the rescission.
Not fully vetted out, but my opinion on that would be it would come back to community services. Community services actually is the entity that issues all notices on property conditions. I consider this no different than, an abandoned vehicle or, a tree laying on top of your roof type of deal. However, yes, it could be something that a citation could be issued instantaneously by either of the other two departments, or it could be issued by us upon notification. I would assume here that since we have a great relationship with both the police and the fire district, that we're going to be in communication of this, and community services will certainly support them, but we may need their eyes in the field in order to just tell us, hey, this is what's going on. They do the documentation, we can do the notice. But they would have the full authority to tell somebody, as occurred this morning, stop the fire.
Yeah, and the point of my question, Director Witt, thank you very much for that explanation, was if it's like on a weekend when you're not around, is there kind of a backup or a, yeah.
Again, they have full authority to be able to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we need that again because we have off hours that community services is not here within the building.
Trustee Jamerson, then Trustee Eastman, please.
Tagging on to Trustee Smith's question/comment. It says the permit may be rescinded at any time when the foregoing conditions cannot be satisfied or are not complied with during the burning. But they're not complied with during the burning. I understand the permit can be rescinded, but it sounds like if there's an air alert or a fire alert, they're not supposed to burn, but that you wouldn't rescind the permit because of an air alert. You would just temporarily postpone it, correct? Am I reading that wrong, Bruce?
I guess you would say, even though the permit authorizes. Even though the permit authorizes burning for this 9-day period, you can't do it during these 4 days because there's an alert. Maybe that's a slight nuance there. Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Eastman, please.
Other than that,
Sure. So my question was to Attorney Hubert. So the way that this is written, it says permit for open burning may be issued for up to 90 days. So I assume that if you got the permit, right, and you complied with all the conditions within, you could, in theory, burn every single day of those 90 days the way that it's written, right? Not assuming, that anyone would do that, but there's no, other than if there's an air quality action day or some other reason.
Right. Yes.
Okay. That concerns me a bit, but it may be as good as we can get it here.
I think the attempt here was to clarify the rules, require a permit. When you get a permit, you come in, you get the permit, you would get a list of the rules, and you would get a map. So it's also educational. But enforcement, again, the test case this morning was quite helpful. The officer who was delivering the message to the homeowner was happy to have clarity and made it much easier for him to say, put it out, than just not having much clarity on that. Trying to get to good enforcement, clear enforcement, education, and consideration of your neighbors with respect to where the smoke is and isn't, and assessing fines that can get people's attention, with the addition of logs and lumber are not yard waste, are not landscape waste. I think that's going to be helpful. And this may not be the be-all, end-all, but it seems to move toward us being able to ensure safety. We do have to consider the safety, the fire risk here as well. We did have a high wind alert last week, and Chief instructed his officers to do a drive-through in the areas where we knew that there had been burning in the past, just to ensure that nothing happened. You see how dry and open, the village campus is, and that wouldn't take a heck of a lot. So we're concerned about fire safety, we're concerned about enforcement and clarity, and, frankly, the comfort of the neighborhood, of the neighborhoods. As I reported earlier, we've had a number of complaints, and they're not just from one neighborhood. We have residents from a single neighborhood that have been, carrying the burden here. So, and the addition of the smaller burn pile, which is now compliant with actual fire code, I think, and I'm hopeful, that will go a long way to helping this situation. Trying to reach a satisfactory compromise, and again, we'll see how enforcement goes. We're working through this, but I think the permit, as I said, our officers found that with the permit and the rules and the map, it's extraordinarily helpful. Those are the things we did not have before. And if there are any visitors wishing to address the board at this point, please come forward. Please state your name.
Yes, Margaret Lusky. Spelling? Oh, you got it. All right, perfect. So thank you, and good evening, everybody. This is helpful to have a little bit of context on the discussion and where is everybody sort of netting out. So everybody knows that we've been working as a community since August, and before then, we've been enduring the pain of, constant burning for years. The issue is that it's, we all signed petition. It was 25 members of our nearest community, and we continue to struggle with the issue, right? So it's not just me, it's not just, 3 other people, it's 25 people. We are all very busy professionals traveling significantly. So we're not always able to come in person and discuss it. But today I've done something different. I actually checked what is the responsibility of the board, of the village board in general. And there's actually a very, very specific one. And, the board is responsible for establishing policy, enacting ordinances, approving the budget, and overseeing the village's operations to ensure the health, the safety, and the welfare of the residents. So obviously that's a big issue. And landscape waste burning is dangerous, life-threatening, carcinogenic, and bad for the environment. That's a fact, right? I have provided the references. What scares me, and let me step back. I know that there have been improvements, so I want to acknowledge that the board is trying to make a difference. The progress is slow, and we don't feel as residents, even for the last several days, we have exchanged several emails, phone calls, texts to discuss this. The issue is thinking about what happened in California just 2 months ago, it took 25 minutes for the fires to cover 200 acres. I would like to find out if you know how many acres is Riverwoods. Does anybody know?
4 square miles. It's 4 square miles.
Yeah, exactly. So let's think about where we are with our tanker tracks that need to come from Prospect Heights or Long Grove. 20 minutes. There's no way if the fire breaks that we're protected. Not to mention multiple of the neighbors have electric or hybrid cars, which are apparently a really big issue for the firefighters. So this is very troubling because we have no fire hydrants in the area. We have no tanker trucks that are available, likely, and I understand that permits are helpful, but having 90-day permit that somebody burns 90 days straight, that is not very helpful to me. Is it possible, or to me, or the people that have signed the petition, is it possible that it could be shortened, that it's not 90 days? I mean, is that an alternative that could be discussed or sort of considered? The alternative also that Trustee Dickens suggested about, the pickup of the leaves, I think that's a great alternative as well. Especially if it's similar to the price of the permit. I mean, that's something that could be considered. So, fire department prefers no burning as they likely not be able to protect us. There have been 53 phone calls complaining about the burning. And let's just think about, none of us want to call the police or the fire departments after the first offense. It takes probably 10, 15, 20 times until it gets unbearable that somebody calls. So this is a pervasive issue. Here's the insult to the injury. In our area alone, we pay extremely high taxes. In our nook that 25 residents sign, it's $30,000 to $47,000 a year. We do not only feel safe, it's unhealthy, and we cannot even be outside. So this is really troubling. And honestly, putting the fire department and police, who's, by the way, they're amazing, it's almost unfair. So having a little clarity, and when it comes to nuisance, this is an improvement. I acknowledge that, but still having the 90 days ability to burn nonstop, it's just troubling. So keeping the ordinances as they are or making only minimal revision is like knowingly putting residents in physical danger. Ignoring these risks isn't just irresponsible. To me, it's morally wrong. So I would really hope that we make perhaps a little more revisions or a little more restrictions to help us save, and check in after the summer and see if there have been improvements, if there's something that has worked and revised. It may be a process, but it's a worthwhile process. So I would urge the board to make the right choice and prioritize our safety and health. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Hollander, please.
Yeah, one of the problems is trying to find a compromise between significant numbers of people in the village that want to try to burn and those who don't want to burn. I'm sure that this is going to come back to the board at some time in the future, a year and a half, 2 years from now, after we've had some experience with this, and it may be modified. This is not the first or second time this has come up. So I think this is an interim step. And I think that it's possible if it comes back in 2 years, we'll review the history and find out whether or not this worked and how to make changes that make it work better if we find that it's necessary. So I'm personally in favor of the change, and it may not solve everything, but it takes a step forward towards it, I think.
So thank you. Just for context, so you're not in favor on limiting the length of the permits?
My impression is, since we're having a conversation, my impression is that it's a single individual not following the rules on any one particular day. I understand that 90 days is usually for a season. I don't know whether or not if someone's going to not follow the rules or try to do something inappropriate. If it's a 30-day permit, they'll take it out every 30 days. I don't think the length of the time of the permit is the issue in my mind. I think the problem is any single fire is an issue.
Is it possible to get a permit every single time that somebody burns? No.
No, that's a night.
Trustee Jamerson, would you like to comment?
Yes. To answer your question, that would be a bookkeeping nightmare.
Oh, I see.
But I would say that the way this ordinance is written, it does give the Director of Community Services the ability to rescind the permit completely if they are found to be doing what they're not supposed to be doing, which would make that person who took that permit out not able to burn at all.
Oh.
That's the way it's written.
Okay.
That's why I asked the question, and that's why Trustee Smith asked the question.
Yes, and I appreciate the clarifications, the logistics, like what's the steps, what is the process, as residents, what do we do?
So I think to tag on to Trustee Hollander, and I don't think it will, if changes need to be made, I don't think it's going to be 2 years down the road. I think once we have this done, if we find out in the fall that this was not the right way to go, it can be brought up to the board again. This is not something that has to happen, can't be brought up again for years.
Okay.
So to give you a little bit of a hope that, but I do think that the fact that the permit can be totally rescinded if they violate the ordinance puts a lot of teeth into the ability to enforce that and to make it a little more livable where you are.
Right. Yeah, it's been year 4.
Right. No, I understand that.
Right. So this is, okay. So what's the logistical sort of when something happens that we feel like, how do we double check that somebody has the permit?
Director Witt,
Call the
please.
Village Hall. Vivian is going to be taking care of these permits. She'll have a list. We're going to have a running list of who has a permit, not only us, but the fire district as well as the police department. So any of those parties can say these permits are what are active. You might be off a day or two. We're better than the county, which takes 6 months to make changes in the system, but we're within a day or two of having everybody informed on what's going on. I think the issue with just to piggyback on some other conversation, and particularly to go to Trustee Eastman's concern, the 90-day thing is not intended that somebody's actually going to burn for 90 days in a row. We don't even have that now when no permits are required. The concept is that you pick out a quarter that you want to do your burn. So say you want to do fall cleanup, you pull a permit. You can pull a permit today for something in the fall. You don't have to come in and remember, oh, gee, I wanted to do it this weekend. You can get it in advance. So the concept is really just during this time period, you can do some burns, but you're also required to do it according to the rules. And the permit can be rescinded. And even above and beyond that, if you take a look at the fine amounts, they go up to $1,000 on the third burn that's out of compliance, and further on, at some point, it's going to bite somebody in the pocketbook.
That's the hope.
So I think we have enough triggers here to get some control on this. And again, I see, as Trustee Jamerson says, as well as Trustee Hollander, yes, this is going to get revisited. With anything that happens like this, you got to give it a bit of time, see how people react to it, see how they respond, and see how compliant they're going to be. And if we need to make a change, we'll work on a change.
And just final clarification, I want to make sure I understand the nuisance enforcement. So even if somebody has the permit and it's a nuisance to neighborhood, that somebody can come in and put the fire down?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
If they don't stop the fire, and again, that was a notion that almost occurred this morning. The fire did not want to go, they didn't want to put the fire out. We were saying, if you don't, we will. So we're already putting into place something that we technically don't have here, but nonetheless, we're doing it for protection. You know, it is a safety concern, and I certainly feel that either of these three departments have the ability currently to do that because it's a life safety issue.
Yes, yes, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time? Yes, sir. Please step forward.
Howard Grill, Grill. I live on Gemini Lane down the street from here. Clearly, you guys have put in a lot of time and effort and thought into this process, and I appreciate all that. But I think I have a solution for you that I can offer up, and that is to just ban burning altogether, other than a controlled or prescribed burn that is conducted by a professional village-approved contractor. I think this is a situation where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And for the betterment of the community, I think that would be a great solution, just to ban this altogether. The surrounding communities have bans, and Riverwoods probably has more trees and natural areas than all those communities do. And it seems odd that we would be the one that allows it. It just seems contrary to what makes sense. So the surrounding communities don't permit this. It seems to work for them. And while there may be a few residents that want to do burning, this is something that the greater good of the community would benefit from not having this take place. So I'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, are there trustees? Do you have any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
No.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, board comments. Does anyone on the board have any comments? Trustee Hollander, please.
Yeah, last meeting, we had a suggestion to try to do a project for the village, and periodically throughout the year, we have either ideas from residents or trustees or the mayor or someone from staff that there are projects that might be beneficial to the residents or the village. And we don't really have a good way of doing this at a board meeting. I've spoken to every trustee as well as the mayor and try to put forth an idea of having a committee which would be as needed. The chairman of the committee would be the community service trustee, or whomever that might be. And depending on what the project being put forth, the subject was, a second trustee who oversaw that subject would be part of the committee. Staff would be brought in as needed or residents as needed. And it's a way for a committee to evaluate what the project is. Is there staff time required? Is there going to be additional staff needed for it? Is there a cost involved? Do we need to fund it? What is the scope? What is the goal? But some way to bring together all the elements so that when they're ready to bring it to the board will have a completed project with all the elements that the board can decide, is this something we want to do? And if they do it, they're going to have to put funds towards it if it requires it. And they're going to have to find some way to staff it if that's required. But it's a way for the trustees to evaluate and approve and discuss a project after it's already been gone through a process that has the answers to what we might ask. I spoke with the mayor about it, and she has some thoughts about rolling it into a different committee. What I'm asking this board to do, I'm not going to be here to be involved in it, but to approve the idea that there is going to be a formal committee that will evaluate projects whose job it is to bring it then to the board for a vote or evaluation, however it's structured. Because it's very awkward to do it in an open meeting like this where we don't have any of the information.
Anybody wishes to
I
speak?
have a copy or handout, but rather than doing that, I'll give it to the mayor and she can then distribute it when she wishes to.
Well, what I would suggest to you is, because we are so close to having new trustees seated, that we take this up at the governance workshop. So we've got the two new trustees on the board at the time, and that would be the feature or a committee or governance action that they could take up and they would be living with. So that would be my suggestion.
I would push back slightly in that the trustees here have had at least 4 years' experience, and then I think they can make a judgment as to whether or not this should be considered rather than having two trustees who have never involved with this. So I'm asking that there's a resolution of the board or an opinion of the board that this be put forth in the.
I would also ask that you consider the fact that this new committee or subgroup would be competing with resources, because if you're talking about vetting ideas, that would mean that you would want to speak with our village attorney or our village engineer, or get the feedback of our building department or our finance department. So it might be like a twice over kind of thing. But again, I would strongly urge that this be considered at the governance workshop. I think the idea has been heard by the two new upcoming trustees. I think the board here has also, then if you've spoken with everybody. So that seems to be the best time for action at that governance workshop, because you're talking about adding another layer of committees and another layer of governance. The idea that I heard that could work in the meantime is we do have committee chairs. We have a building committee, we have a community service committee, we have, law, we have finance, land use. And as issues come up, you can simply go to the building committee, the community service committee, and so forth. So again, I would strongly urge this board to put this forward at the governance committee. Now, if you'd like this on the agenda for April 2nd, to put a more formal spin on it, we can certainly do that.
I've heard the idea that staff time is limited, and I recognize that. They're very busy. I've heard that it's increased cost. But at some point, I think that if we think that something is worthwhile, the board can make a policy decision, which is part of our job, to say that this is worthwhile and we're willing to put forth some funds towards it or additional staff towards it. I don't think this is something that can always be pushed back and say, we don't have the staff or the time or the money. I don't think that's an adequate excuse. I think that if the board feels something is worthwhile to be done, they can make a decision to do it. And if they don't think so, then they won't.
I was simply suggesting, and I appoint to be considered. And my stronger suggestion was that the new board members, because they would be acting under, if the board decides to go forward with a special committee, they could do that. You'll still have the votes, Henry, come on.
So the what? I mean, we're having a
You'll still-
discussion. I mean, I'm putting this forth towards the board, and I'm
You'd
having a
like it on the
discussion with
agenda
the
if the
mayor.
board-
And
if the
that's
board-
not quite what, that was not quite my intent.
If the board would like to move this forward, we can certainly put this on the agenda for action at the April 2nd meeting.
That's what I'm asking. I know we can't put it on the agenda today. I'm bringing it forth so we can at
Does
least
the-
discuss it.
Would the board, is there a consensus for putting this on the agenda on the April 2nd?
I'd
meeting?
like to see it on the agenda. I mean, I think it's a great
Am I getting
idea.
none? Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
And
But I will say.
Oh, go ahead.
I will say that we do have to keep in mind the two new trustees that will be coming in. But I mean, I don't think that having this on the agenda, on April 2nd is going to preclude them having their say when the time comes.
Yeah, and President Ford, Trustee Hollander and I spoke about it. I think it's a really great idea as a way to help vet and then prioritize ideas. So I agree with Trustee Jamerson that I'd like to see it on the April 2nd agenda, maybe not for a decision, but to have a discussion. And then we can, once again, kind of perhaps delay this decision until the new board members are on.
We'll put it on the April 2nd agenda for discussion. Is there anything else for any other board comments this evening? Okay, seeing no reason to go into executive session, may I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Next meeting is Wednesday, April 2nd. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
We have a motion and a
Motion
second.
for
We just need to
adjournment.
vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.